Good morning. Welcome to the front row seat. I'm out for another walk and ponder, and this is really peaceful back here. Well, this morning I was getting everything together and coming out for a walk, and I was just thinking about the thoughts coming to my mind were, hocus pocus, you must learn how to focus. And I thought, that's a fun one. I was reading a lot about mind and consciousness and all of that. I was really interested in the nature of reality. I read all the Seth papers, and there was just some crazy information in there. I didn't believe all of it. I just had experienced some of it, and I thought this is really interesting. And then I had to think around, well, what is mind? And went down that rabbit hole. And some people think that it may be that mind is consciousness. We can't see it, feel it, taste it, smell it. It's non-physical. So since we're in a physical reality here, it's going to be hard to nail down what it is. But which way, this way. And in that mind is consciousness. And what can it do? There's those sayings, mind over matter. And in Tom Campbell's work, that consciousness is foundational. If that's the case, that it's the foundation, then that means that learning to work with your consciousness would really be helpful. Because mind and thoughts and emotions, as I talked about the other day, are creative. And it's creative, and then that gets reflected back into the reality for you to see, to let you know how you're doing. And one of the things that mind and learning to understand and work with your consciousness that I found is that there is a need to learn how to focus your consciousness and make it to where you're more in control of what that consciousness is doing. It's like it can be like, it's like putting a lens on it to where it focuses it down to more of a central location. And then when you focus, you're not distracted real easily by other things that are in your environment. And if you look at the old sages and everything from India, well, meditation and yoga, those two things is what they used, and that's what they were doing. They were learning and teaching their consciousness to focus. And when I first learned about this, I tried to meditate, and it was to be real honest, it was kind of uncomfortable. It's like I felt overwhelmed with all these thoughts coming in, and I felt a little frustrated because I was trying to do that, and I felt like I had a hard time with it. And so I kind of just gave up. Um, so as I was trying to meditate, I decided I didn't like meditation. Didn't even like the word of it. So I changed it to my own thing. And I changed it to mind focus work. Mind focus work can be done in several ways. You don't have to meditate. There's other ways to do it. And then the funny parts came in. Is hocus focus. You must learn how to focus. And I would have those thoughts in my mind as I'm working to learn how to focus. And so what I did is I did my own way, and I didn't try to stop the thoughts, because when you read about meditation, well, you got to stop the thoughts from coming in, and there's a lot of information around it, and it really didn't help me that much. So as I was looking for a way for me, since it is my own personal reality, I found a couple ways to teach my mind to focus a little better. When I would feel anxious or fearful or any of those things, in the beginning, this was probably 7 years ago, I made myself a bracelet, and it had 4 beads on it. And when I would feel that way from, something happening in my environment or my mind or whatever, and I couldn't focus and it was very distracting, or I, would feel a little panicky in fight-flight mode and realized I was pretty much in flight mode most of the time, I had this bracelet. And so as I moved around in my world, I would use this bracelet, and it had 4 beads, and on the first bead it was stop. You are not in danger. And that's all the fight-flight thing really does, is say, well, you're not safe. So it sets off this thing so you can run away and not be eaten by the tiger. Well, we don't have tigers in our environment anymore, and that system is a little bit not really well adapted to the modern world we live in today. So I had to learn how to get that fight-flight system to chill out. It seems like, if I was in it so long, it sort of had like a hair trigger on it. Like any little thing would set it off. And so I wore this bracelet. Had 4 beads on it. And the first one was stop. You are not in danger. There's nothing in your environment that's fixing to grab you and eat you like a tiger. There's not a predator that's trying to, harm you in a physical way. So the second bead, see, I gotta remember. First is stop. You're not in danger. Oh, I'm having a hard time remember that. Well, I am really relaxed right now. So, let's see, stop. You're not in danger. The second one, maybe if I go by the colors. The first bead was red, and it was stop. Oh, I got it now. The first bead was red. The second bead was yellow, and the second bead was yellow. It says you are not in danger. The third bead was blue, and it was take 3 deep breaths through your nose and blow out. And the fourth bead was green, and I said, relax, you got this. And I used that bracelet anytime I felt panicky. And I felt that I'm probably in fight-flight right now. And I read a lot about fight-flight mode too. It appears that it has an on switch, but it does not have an off switch. It gets triggered by your environment. And then, used to this system, the tiger would come in, or whatever, the threat would come in the environment. Then you would see it, the fight, flight, the panic button gets hit, and then that gives you the energy and everything that you need to run away and keep yourself safe. But what turned it off? What turned the fight-flight system off? Well, again, it was the environment. Because the threat would come in, then everybody scatter and get out of the threat, whatever was going on. And then the environment didn't have the threat in it anymore. The tiger would walk off and they would see it. They would see the threat go away. And what I noticed in the modern environment, and that would turn the fight-flight system off, is fight-flight or rest-digest. There's two modes of being. And as the fight-flight comes on, the threat's there, then they would watch the threat leave, and then that is what turned the fight-flight. Okay, danger has passed, everybody's okay. But in the modern world that we live in now, there's things like, loud noises, and I noticed one of the things that would get my fight-flight activated was if I was close by somewhere and somebody would start up one of those motors real quick, and that would trigger it, and my mind would think, danger, Will Robinson, there's a problem here, and it would kick in my fight-flight system. So it was lawnmowers, weed eaters, there was just so many things in my environment that had the capability of setting off my fight-flight system. And over time, it'd been set off so much, it was like it had a hair trigger on it. Just any little thing set it off. Well, if the threat in the environment doesn't go away, because they're going to mow the whole yard, well, it wouldn't turn the fight-flight system back off. And so what I found is like, I need to learn how to turn this system off because it's stuck in the on position. And so what I did was use this bracelet to learn how to, once it got set off, to turn it back off so that I wasn't perpetually stuck in fight-flight mode. And that bracelet really helped me a lot. It reset the panic button. It took the hair trigger away to where it wasn't getting set off every single day, unless something, really loud boomed behind me, or just, and then it would. But then I could quickly get it turned back off when I would tell my brain, you're not in danger, everything's okay. Nothing's gone wrong here. So I think the environment is kind of helping with this fight-flight panic button problem. Because we don't live in the same, the natural world we came out of is not the world we live in today. We live in the modern world where there's a lot of things, but we're still running with an avatar that kind of evolved in this, nature environment. So I think that is part of the problem with the panic mode and getting stuck there perpetually. So, moving on after that, I used that bracelet to really get, get myself into a rest digest, a relaxed state. And once I started coming out of the chronic PTSD or what, I don't think it's PTSD. I think I just had a hair trigger on my fight flight system. So once I started getting that corrected, and then I moved on to living my life more in a rest digest mode, which is relaxed, more relaxed. It's way more relaxed than panic mode. And at first, when I first started doing that, I noticed that it was something I wasn't really used to. I wasn't used to feeling that relaxed. And I couldn't quite put my finger. I was like, this is just really odd. I couldn't put my finger on the vibration of it. I feel tired, or am I depressed? No, I don't really feel sad. What it was is, I don't think I'd relaxed much for, a couple of decades. So it was a new feeling. And I just sat there with it and let it be. And it felt better than the panic mode. So I just went with it. It felt good. And over time, I got used to it, and I really enjoyed being there, and it feels better than fight flight mode. You don't have all that adrenaline rushing through your system all the time. And it makes it easier to relax when you're not in fight flight mode. And as this little hypnotized there, I think this is just a really beautiful place right here. It has a really nice, just feels really good in this spot. I don't know what's going on. It's probably just the topography or something. Yeah. So once I figured out that the fight flight has a on mode and an off mode, but it has a on switch, but it has no off switch internally, that I had to find an external off button to get it to turn off. And that's what I did with the bracelet. So then once I got myself out of panic mode and was in more rest digest, it was easier for me to learn to focus. And what I did then was, that was the part where I looked into meditation, and that didn't work very well. And I did this and I tried that, and that's when I found the binaural beats. And that really, really helped. So you put these headphones on, and there's 2 tones. It's at 4 hertz. And what it does is it entrains the right and left hemisphere, and I guess it puts them on the same frequency. I'm not sure exactly how that works. But over time, was able to learn how to go into the theta brain state and relax there. It was teaching me to focus, and it did not take very long at all. And I was able to concentrate better. I was able to focus on the things that I was, working on. I wasn't always distracted and caught up in panic, fight, flight. I was focused on what I was doing and trying to accomplish in my reality. I was able to do more things. I had more energy. The fight flight mode, you're using a lot of energy to run that system. You've got adrenaline, and it makes you want to move about a lot, and so by the end of the day I would just be exhausted. And then after I started doing this focus work, I found that I wasn't exhausted at the end of the day. I found that I had lots of better insights into my reality, and I started learning about consciousness and what it can do. I was always very interested in the nature of reality. I read the Seth papers a long time ago, and that just really intrigued me. So, in the nature of consciousness, I found I'm in a reflective, and it's just reflecting. Oh, that was a big fish right there. I found that it was just reflecting what I was thinking back to me, what I was feeling, and all that stuff. And I found that as I learned to focus, that I could focus my intentions on loving, kind thoughts, and that's what would be reflected back to me in my reality. Loving, kind thoughts has an energy, a vibration to it, and when I think that love is a much more energetic, higher vibration than fear is. So as I focused on loving intentions, I found that those thoughts, and when I would feel good and think about, loving intentions, those thoughts and feelings manifested way faster than anything else. So with all that, I think that I chose to switch out the word meditation with focus work. Hocus pocus. Learn how to focus. But I think consciousness is this energy, and it's almost like when you're not focused, it's like spread out, like when a shotgun is shot, it makes this big wide pattern instead of just a regular bullet that's just focused and it just goes straight and it makes one thing. I think focus work does the same thing. It concentrates it. It's almost like, instead of having like a floodlight, it brings it in to where it's like a spotlight. And then you can use that spotlight and focus your intent and think thoughts there. You start gaining more control of your mind to where you're controlling what it thinks. It's not just all over the place, willy-nilly, thinking thoughts all day long, and you're just like the backseat rider in this car that's careening down the road, going up and down and around, and you get this hopeless feeling like you're being drugged behind a wild horse running down the road. It takes you and puts you in the driver's seat. And then you're controlling what the consciousness is thinking. And you're more in control. I mean, other thoughts still come in all the time. But to me, it feels like it's more intuition, and I'm getting information from this and that. And I'm not perfect at any of this stuff. I just tried to work with and try to find what works for me personally. And I was just trying different things and seeing how I could work with myself and my mind. Felt like I was, moving forward, so I just kept doing what I was doing. And one of those things is finding ways that help facilitate staying out of fight-flight mode and being in rest digest mode, which I think is the theta brain state that I was referring to in another video. So I was thinking about how the word meditation can bring, negative thoughts into the mind, because I had trouble with it. It wasn't easy. I tried it, and it was so uncomfortable that I just didn't continue. But wow, it's so important to get the mind focused so that you're not being drug around by it. I think it's just a very powerful thing, this consciousness that I believe that I am. That if it's not, if it's just left to its own devices, it just turns into this, I call it the washing machine effect, where you're just, walking around and all these different thoughts and patterns are flowing through your mind. And it's like a monkey mind, just from this to that, to this to that, to this to that. And it's just exhausting. It's really tiring. So then I started to notice what are the things that kind of trigger my PTSD. Or not PTSD, I call it what triggers my fight-flight system. What's causing that to become activated within me. Then I started weeding out those things. And one of the things that I found here recently, I just was really curious because I heard everybody's like, oh, this is fun, and look at this. And it's a social media platform called TikTok. And I thought, that sounds interesting. I think I'll see what it is. And oh, wow. It was almost like, wow, is this thing designed to take your focus away? I noticed very quickly that it was a lot of fun. But then I noticed that there was, even if I set it to, the things I like, I noticed that a random video could just pop it up in there and be uncomfortable. So not only was it turning on my fight-flight system, it was also causing me to lose my focus during my day. And I noticed it. And I was like, wow, this is not good. I am not going back to monkey mind. No way. And I'm just, for me personally, I'm not sure that it was designed that way, but just for me, that's what it caused. It caused me to lose my focus, and I wanted to have the focus that I'd learned so that I could create the life I want to see, and because it's reflecting right back to me in every single way. So that's one of the things that I found for me that took away my focus. And so I set that one down, and I was, because sometimes when you're, say for instance, if you're at an airport, there's a lot of stuff going on there. The environment for me could be a little bit loud and intense. So I would do that app, TikTok, and it would make the time fly by. And then it was time to get on the plane. I like that about it. But then when I found these negatives to it, I went, oh, that's not good. So I stopped doing that. I started taking me a crossword puzzle or something to do while I was waiting for airplanes and things like that. And that way I would be focused on that instead of, the hurried environment I was in. So other things that helps hocus pocus, I must focus, is talking to some of my sweet friends. I have a couple of friends. Her name is Grandma D, and I met her walking my little dog, and she was very kind, and we would just have these wonderful talks, and she was really interesting. She's read a lot of books, and we had a lot of similar beliefs. I mean, not beliefs, but we had a lot of similar things that we liked, and we would talk to each other about everything. And I noticed that I felt relaxed when I talked to her. And I was like, oh, that's probably because that helps with my focus. And everything I did, I really, I was focusing on focus. So I think that's the first thing that has to be present before the next step can be taken into focusing in the ways you want to focus to create what you want to see in your reality. I think that tool of the ability to focus is a must. Because if it's just all over the place, well, how are you going to, if your mind, your creative mind, is just bouncing from thing to thing to thing to thing, it's never on one thing long enough to bring it into your reality. As to me, it feels like the sim has like a little delay on it. It's almost like as you're thinking it, you got to give the simulation a minute to like lock into it and start doing something. It's I don't just focus and think, oh, I'd like a glass of lemonade, and it appears there. It's not how it works. It has a little delay in it, and you have to wait for it. And that reminds me, the other day I was thinking about this delay mechanism here. And I thought, oh, that's the whole thing about, you know, being patient. And I've heard all my life, well, patience is a virtue. And just the other day, I was talking to a friend of mine. I said, you know what? Patience is not a virtue. It's a necessity. Is if you don't wait for what you're focusing on, if you don't give the stimulation time to create it, well, it can't create it because then you've already moved on to the next thing. You have to be able to focus on it for a minute and then give it time to bring it. That's why the technique of thinking about what you want, feeling good about it, then tie that little piece of paper to a imaginary balloon in your mind and let it go. That's why that works so well, is because if you don't give it time, it can't do anything. You've already moved on to the next thing. So now I tell myself, oh, what was that? That patience is not a virtue. It's an absolute necessity with the way this simulation brings the reality to you, or to me, or whoever it's bringing it to. Yeah. So I thought that was just really funny. It's not a virtue. It is an absolute necessity. So I found the simulation has kind of a time delay on it, and you focus on what you want, tie it to a balloon, and let it go, and then go on with your day. Because I found if I spent too much time around it, that would give my mind room to put doubts in there, and then the doubts would come in and then wrap around my balloon and tie it down to the ground, and it couldn't go anywhere. Because once doubt or anything like that is in there, those vibrations of doubt push things away from you. Or if you believe that you can't do something or can't have something because you've never had it, those thoughts push what you want right away from you. It's like when you see a little toddler walking down the road, they walk, and the little toddler walks up to pick up the ball, and then they walk up and kick it with their foot, and then it moves 3 or 4 foot out in front of them. Then they get up and they walk over to it again and do the same thing. It's like that's what you're doing with your creative mind. You're pushing it away because negative vibrations create just that, more negative vibrations. So the technique of tying it, and I just would do it in my mind. I would visualize a balloon, and I could visualize what what I was reaching for. Then I would tie it to the balloon, just let it go. And then go do something else. I didn't think about it anymore. Let go of a lot of balloons, all different colors. So that's what I learned about that. The other thing I learned about in my process is I had to learn that some of the things that were coming up in my reality were about some of those underlying fears that I carried for a long time. You know, I had some experiences that were scary throughout my life, and that kind of just gets embedded in there. And then you have fears of weird things, like I had a terrible fear of snakes. I had an experience where I was sitting in a boat with my father, and I'm sitting there fishing. He taught me how to fish, and I'm just sitting there, and we were tied up at some old wood stumps sitting there, and we were catching crappie in the lake. And I was just in the zone, I'm sure, because it was very relaxing being in a boat on a lake. And I looked up, and right in front of me, about 2 feet from my face, hadn't seen it before because it was camouflage, there was a snake that was curled up in this knot on this tree. And it caught me unaware. And immediately, I was scared out of my wits. Scared me because we have poisonous snakes here. And there's a lot of people here in Texas that have fears of snakes because they can hurt you really bad. So I had that experience, and that snake scared me really bad. And so, which I'm sure just concentrated that fear into a bigger fear, which then caused, you know, poisonous snakes to appear in my reality all the time because I had a fear of them. And that's why fear is not good, because that's a vibration. It brings it to you. You know that saying? Something about your worst fears always come true. Well, that's why, because it's you. It was me. And so I kind of went back through, you know, those things that I was afraid of. Snakes, just anything I could find. Every time I had an experience that wasn't pleasant, I would think back, well, how could this be a fear? And I would just start asking questions. Why is this in my reality? Why do I feel this way? And then I just kept asking questions until I would get to the place where it was, oh, well, I had this experience and it scared the bejeebies out of me, and I need to desensitize that. And I would go to work desensitizing it like I did with snakes. You know, at first you just put a big old giant snake on your TV and, you know, walk out of the room for a minute, right? Then when you go walk back in there, it's just like, there it is all of a sudden. Then while you kind of let it startle you a little bit, you just go, you know what? That snake's on the TV and it can't get me. Snakes aren't that bad. They don't want to come after me. They don't eat people. They like things like rats and grasshoppers and things like that. They do not eat people. And so I did that with all the fears that I found. I desensitized myself to big dogs, to snake, and I'm recently still working on the snake. Yesterday I was able to put one in my hand. So you make real progress with it as you desensitize these fears. Then they stop creating more of it in the reality. So I noticed as I worked on my fear snakes, I was getting probably a snake every 2-3 months in my reality. Then when I started working on the snake fear, I was only getting like, you know, one every 6 months. And now, you know, the one I saw yesterday is the first one I've seen in probably over 6 months. And it wasn't anything scary. It was just kind of like a beautiful, harmless garden snake. So that's telling me that the fear is going down and decreasing. So I started using my experience and what's coming at me, this reflection, as helping me to see where I'm at and what I got going on. Instead of getting upset at what's happening, I learned to embrace what's happening. I am in a training simulation, learning to use my consciousness. And so instead of getting upset at my reality, I started just becoming just curious. Why is that there? How'd that get there? What's going on? And then I saw that a lot of what's going on is not there to freak me out. It's there to help me learn, help me see what I'm doing, so that I could have the ability to work on it and change it. Because there was always something in my consciousness that was not doing so well. I had a fear around something, or it'd be a belief. One I found that I had was generalizing things. Like if this scary thing happened here, then I would generalize. Well, then all of those things are scary and I must avoid them. Well, kind of like with snakes. Well, I was scared of all of them. Well, only some of them were poisonous. And a lot of them that I would see were just little green-eyed grass snakes and nothing that would harm me. So some of those scary memories I had was like this generalization that I was doing. And that creates more of it. Then you have to avoid more things. Then you have more fear, and it just keeps getting wadded around, and you're in this, place where you're actually creating more of what you don't want. And I just started seeing the things that would be perceived as negative experiences as something like in the Indian traditions, the bad thing that comes to you that can help you learn and grow past what you're afraid of or any of that stuff would be called a bodhisattva. And it wasn't there to scare you, but to help you. It was there to help you get past something. Ooh, this feels good in here too. So the bodhisattva comes and helps you see what you're doing, to show you, to point you in the direction of where you need to go. It's not there to harm you and freak you out and do all that stuff. Oh, there's some big fish in here. You see him? Where'd he go? He's gone now. Ooh. And in Jason's work, he has a term called AIX, and it's like a programming in the system, I think. Well, to me, I think it is. It's programmed to help consciousness evolve here. And to evolve, got to get rid of that fear. You can't get anywhere when you've got a lot of fear. You're creating chaos. And so a friend of mine, we were talking in chat one day, and I said, well, maybe that program is trying to help us. It's not trying to upset us and freak us out. And then we both started, every time we see each other now, it's, thank you, AIX. Thank you for helping me out. Thank you for helping me find a way to not think these things anymore. Yeah, I know it's not funny because some of the things that we experience here are not fun. I know it's not fun. I've been through it too. But since, you know, the way out is in, and there is a way out and up into a better vibration that brings more of what you want into your reality. I'm learning to just accept. That's just the way it is. And I'm not in control of other people's reality, of other people's creations. I'm only in control of my own. And so as I go through my day, I focus there. I can't change for someone else. I can't grow and evolve for someone else. They have to want to do the work. They have to want to get better themselves. They have to choose that. I can't choose for them. And that's another little thing there, you know. We have free will here, but we only have free will for ourselves. Yeah, we can, you know, push people around and do that kind of thing, but it's very detrimental because if you think about it, you know, walk up to a dog and stand there and look at their sweet eyes and say, "How you doing? Howdy, partner. You sure are cute." And then put your hand up next to its side and push it. Well, what does it do? It pushes back. So I noticed when I would try to change someone else's behavior because I didn't like what they were doing or whatever's, well, they always push back. And then they don't like you. It makes them frustrated and upset because I found that anytime our free will is being encroached upon, there's like a, I don't know, like an instinctual thing that doesn't feel good when, you know, something is trying to take over the free will that we are granted here for ourselves. And so everyone has free will to do as they please. And I had to learn to let go of that trying to control others because I can't anyway. And believe me, I tried. And now I just let people be. Let them be who they are. And if something is feeling negative within me, then I go back to my focus work. You know, come out of fight, flight. Because in the end, they don't have control over my free will. I do. So I get to choose what I do next. And that makes it a little less scary because in the long run, we all really do have our own free will here. We get to choose. We get to choose who will stay and who will go. And that's a good thing. I'm glad that I get to have my own free will. It's good to know. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed this little walk and ponder. I really love it here. And everybody have a great, wonderful day. Toodles.